Hey yo, this is LOSO, and we are bringing you not live.
Really? Not live?
Because usually you say this LOSO, and we're live from Lincoln Park.
We ain't live, baby.
We ain't live. No, we not live.
It's another episode.
I mean,
of the
we got
Parental
Windows
Advisory
live.
Podcast.
We got Windows live. But this is another episode of the Parental Advisory Podcast, bringing you the latest on everything
And greatest
on everything. I am one of your hosts, LOSO, along with my two co-hosts, Jay Serve and Wilmo Chiquito Rivera. Where can they find you at, Jay?
You can find me at jserve954 on all social media. JSERVE 954 on all social media. All major streaming platforms for my album, my project Dope. It's out right now, so Spotify, Apple, Tidal, all that shit. Check me out. Fuck with your boy.
And where can they find you at, Young Wilmo?
Oh, hello, guys. You can find me on Instagram, Snapchat, and even the PSN. If you want to holla at me on the video games, video juegos, Wilmo _Chiquito. Holla at me, brown guy.
And where can the people find you at, Ella?
They can find me at LSO463 for all my social media, and LSO40 for my YouTube and Twitch. Or sorry, my LSOYT for my YouTube and LSO40 for my Twitch. But yes, today we have a special guest all the way from Alberta, Canada.
We're going international, y'all.
He's calling in. He is known as the weed Cannaisseur.
Cannaisseur.
Yes. 420 Weed Cannaisseur. You can find him at on Twitter, and that will link you to all of his stuff, which I was reading his WordPress, and a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of interesting articles. So definitely Canada is way past us when it comes to weed than we are.
Yeah, so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to the Cannaisseur, Callan, all the way from Alberta, Canada, you guys. Give it up for him, man.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's great. And we were able to I was able to find you. I forgot how. I think I was was looking at someone else's page who was he was a smoker, and I happened to see he retweeted. I'm not too good with Twitter, so he retweeted one of his articles or one of your tweets, and that's how I found you, and then you found me, and sorry, I'm smoking right now.
That means my social media presence is working.
It is. It definitely is. All the way from Alberta to here in Fort Lauderdale.
So yeah, thank you very much for coming in, Callan.
For sure.
So let's just get right into it. So how did you acquire this moniker of the Cannaisseur?
How did I acquire the moniker? Well, actually, to be totally honest, when I was originally going to start my blog, I was just going to call it the Cannaenthusiast. But it kind of morphed from there into the Cannaisseur, just the portmanteau of connoisseur and cannabis. Mainly just because I was kind of looking for something that kind of communicated to people that my blog was about, kind of a higher level of knowledge regarding the consumption of cannabis that I wanted to spread with the community.
Okay. Now, how long have you been active in with cannabis culture and everything like that?
Well, I started using cannabis recreationally when I was quite young. When I was in high school, I was about 14 years old. But I didn't really get into really learning about cannabis and studying cannabis and advocating for the rights of cannabis users and medical cannabis patients until I was probably about 20 years old, roughly. I was working at an electronics store, which was very conservative, and I came to work smelling like cannabis one day, and they drug tested me, which I found out later on was actually a human rights violation.
Oh, wow.
So they drug tested you on the spot?
Because here in Canada...
So on the spot they drug tested you?
Drug test somebody for employment unless it's what's called a safety-sensitive position. So that's usually like transport employees, airplane pilots, stuff like that.
Huh.
So after I was dismissed from that position, I started learning more about the laws surrounding drug testing, and I started doing more research into cannabis. That's when I really kind of got the fiery passion to help other people who were in the same situation. Maybe they had been, discriminated against because they used cannabis for medical purposes, which I do because.
What did you do?
When I was dismissed from that, that kind of lit the fire under me to really try and help other people in the community.
Oh, okay. All right. There. Now, sorry, we lost you there for static. So you said that you started using cannabis for what exactly?
I started originally using cannabis because of my Tourette syndrome, a variety of different mental health conditions and stuff like that, as well as a knee injury that I obtained. I used to be a competitive kickboxer when I was in high school.
Wow.
And so it was kind of a culmination of things, and because cannabis is such a multimodal medicine, it was able to get me off of a bunch of different prescription medications. But at that point, the medical cannabis system in Canada it wasn't really available to anybody who was a youth or even under the age of like 25 because there was so much stigma around it. So at that point, they were just kind of handing out morphine like candy.
So now, Callan, from when you were diagnosed to when you started using cannabis for your Tourette's, how long was that period in between of them? Because you were off mic, you were speaking about how you were misdiagnosed at first and put on the wrong medication. So how long of that was that time?
When I was, I was diagnosed with ADHD originally when I was probably about 8 years old, and they started me on Ritalin. And after that, because stimulants have a negative effect on Tourette syndrome, can actually make it worse, they kept adding diagnoses and kept adding medication. So by the time I was about 14 years old, I was on a cocktail of about 14 or 15 different psychiatric, very heavy sedative psychiatric prescription medications.
Wow, that's insane.
And I think that I always, in a sense, used cannabis medicinally, even when it was recreational. When I started using back in high school, I think that I was more self-medicating than anything else because the medications, they weren't working.
Now, even then, sorry to interrupt you real quick.
In that sense, I think that it was medicinal. But when I first got my medical card was about 3 years ago. I was 25. So there was quite a long period in between those two events.
Now, when you finally did you start even before you became more knowledgeable in with marijuana and everything like that scientifically? I mean now. Did even then, though, back then when you were young and you were, as you say, you were using it recreationally, did you see a correlation of when you did smoke, you felt the symptoms subside for a bit and anything like that, even then?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Now,
I think that I knew that I was using it medicinally, even though at that point I didn't really know anything about medicinal cannabis.
I have a question. So what was the stigma in Canada at that time? When you were starting to smoke, because when you were 14, what year was that?
That would be 2004.
So I'd say in 2004, that's when for us in here in the States, that's when we started to see more people push for legalization. At least 2000. That's when it was much more...
Yeah, in that kind of 2000s area.
Yeah.
I have to say that the stigma, especially in Canada, there's always been that attitude amongst people that cannabis will just make you lazy, it'll make you do nothing, it'll decrease your potential, that it'll decrease your grades if you're a student especially. And I really didn't find that any of those things were true, but I especially find, and it still exists now, but it's getting better, a real stigma around medical use of cannabis. People tend to associate medical cannabis use with senior citizens and stuff like that. They don't realize that a lot of younger folks in their, late teens and early 20s use cannabis just as often medicinally as senior citizens. So.
Well, that's pretty much the stigma we have here as well now with the younger generation. Well, I don't know. And here in the States, I mean, we got our younger generation is pretty. They're not the brightest, but yes, we still definitely do have that stigma here in the States where they think you're just lazy or you think he's just smoking to smoke, and they don't really know. I'd like to say that there can't be a stigma anymore because I feel like everybody goes through something, and marijuana can assist with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of medical benefits to marijuana, especially within the last 10 years that have come to the light now. So much science has been pumped behind it because they see that there's actual money behind it, too. But Callan, one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I don't know how well you could speak to this, but here in the States, historically, marijuana and the laws with marijuana, it being considered a class 1 drug along the same lines as cocaine and heroin, if you look back, then it's actually historically it was William Randolph Hearst, who used to be a big media magnate who owned paper mills and knew that it was that with hemp came into the picture as far as being a cash crop, it would basically destroy his business, because he owned newspapers on top of all that stuff. So
definitely.
He was a big lobbyist for to make marijuana to make it a Schedule 1 drug. Now,
make it illegal.
As far as Canada goes, historically, how has marijuana been treated in Canada historically? Other than obviously it has the stigma, but
right now it's legalized.
Well, yeah, obviously, it's legalized now, but
historically, what not a lot of people know about cannabis legislation in Canada is that Canada actually made cannabis illegal before the United States ever did, about 14 years prior.
Okay. Wow. See, I didn't know
and
that.
I don't know if you're familiar with, she was a feminist author by the name of, I believe, Emily Murphy, who was under the pseudonym of Janie Canuck. She wrote a anti-immigration and anti-drug manifesto called The Black Candle, which you can actually still find in stores today. It was republished by Coles in the 1970s, actually. And that really stigmatized, not just cannabis use, but also a lot of the, people from, Asian countries and Middle Eastern countries who were bringing hash over as part of their cultures and stuff like that. So that was actually one of the main reasons that cannabis was made illegal in the first place in Canada. And then historically, we have had sort of a more progressive view towards cannabis in, say, the last few decades. I know that Pierre Trudeau, actually, the first Trudeau, advocated for legal cannabis. I believe it was in the 70s or 80s. And we had our medical, we had cannabis federally legalized for medical purposes. I believe that was in, I want to say it's somewhere between 2002 and 2006, but the number escapes me right now. But up until just recently, even our medical system was pretty barren. The quality that medical patients needed wasn't there. So we've been kind of in a series of Supreme Court battles over the last decade or so to allow patients to grow their own medication, to have access to better quality medication than the government was providing beforehand. And all in all, kind of the juxtaposition between Canada and the United States, I think that we really have a lot more. We had a lot more options here just because of the way cannabis was scheduled. The Canadian government acknowledges that cannabis has medical properties, so it was scheduled differently than it would be in the United States. Now, one of the problems that we had up until recently was cannabis extracts being scheduled in the same light as cocaine and heroin and stuff like that, because it's an extracted product. And we should be seeing some more changes in that respect, I'm hoping, come next year, just because Canada recently, just this year, legalized the recreational sale of the dry herb and some edible extracts. But as it currently stands, any sort of thing like shatter, honey oil, anything like that that's made with a combustible substance still remains illegal.
So I do want to get into that. Now, Canada legalizing marijuana, does it give you the law? Is it something that people who do use marijuana in Canada, are they happy about it, or are there like loopholes that they feel can be fixed, or like what was the general feedback when it did go that it was legalized recreationally?
It's kind of a mixed bag right now. Most people are really, really happy that we've at least just gotten the government to say, finally, the prohibition doesn't work. However, as it stands, the way that they've legalized, a lot of people are very unhappy about, simply because what they've done is they haven't really legalized cannabis in the broader sense of the word, but they've legalized more so a corporate monopoly on cannabis. And the reason that I say that is because there are a limited number of federally licensed cannabis producers that can grow the product and then sell it to the dispensaries. And it varies from province to province, but in most cases, the liquor commissions will actually purchase the cannabis off of those producers, mark it up, and then sell it to the dispensaries. So the dispensaries actually have to sell it to consumers at a super high markup that's over and above street prices. The other issue with that is that there are a lot of restrictions on how you can have your cannabis, how you can have it stored, what kind of packaging it needs to be in. I know that the dispensaries have to have the licensed producers rather have to sell the cannabis in these packages that have to have a specific surface area so that the big yellow warning labels can be easily read. And it's all paper and plastic, and some of the paper is it's got plastic in it, so it's non-recyclable. And a lot of people are really unhappy about the way that cannabis is being packaged, about the warning labels that I mentioned earlier that's on said packages, because it really does reflect a lot of the propaganda that's been spread around. There are things like, actually, I've got one here on my table. Let me read it to you. Here we go. Cannabis warning: cannabis can be addicted. Up to 1 in 2 people who use cannabis daily will become addicted. So up
what
to
the hell?
50%. That's a 49% margin of error that they're playing with there. Which, I'm a very scientifically minded person, and a 49% margin of error is inexcusable.
Are you fucking kidding me?
You can't say up to 50%.
That's ridiculous.
When the
That's just utterly ridiculous.
the actual number of people who become dependent on cannabis is between 6 to 11%.
Yeah, hasn't it been proven that
in that respect, there's also you would think that they would legislate cannabis more similarly to, say, alcohol or tobacco products, but when you look at the penalties that are in place, let's say if I work in a bong shop, and let's say I were to accidentally sell a pack of blunt wraps to a minor. I would probably receive a fine up to $200,000, depending on how many times the business has, made this infraction or something like that. And basically a slap on the wrist. If, however, I were to work in a dispensary and accidentally sell an individual who was under 18 a joint, that could result in an indictable offense, which is indictable offenses are kind of like the Canadian version of a felony offense in the U.S.
Okay.
And that could result in up to 14 years in prison, which is absolutely reprehensible.
Kind of sounds like Canada's trying to set people up.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of sounds like.
It kind of is. They basically said, here, sure, you can have your cannabis, but here's 50 other ways that you can't have your cannabis. And one of the biggest things that I actually forgot to mention, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, is the fact that they've added all of these taxes on top of the existing price of the cannabis, which I already mentioned was ludicrously high. But they've also extended those taxes into the medical system. So what's happening right now is that medical cannabis patients are also being forced to pay an excise tax on their cannabis. And all medicines in Canada, all prescription medications are what's called zero rated. We don't pay tax on them here, which is fantastic. I love our healthcare system. But the people who require medical cannabis specifically are usually folks who are senior citizens, they're disabled, they're probably on like a fixed income of some sort, and they simply don't have the funds to be paying this extra excise tax on top of the already super high price that the licensed producers are asking for. There's actually an organization called CFAM, Canadians for Fair Access to Medical Marijuana, and they have a campaign called Don't Tax Medicine. I really encourage anybody who's out there to, especially any Canadian listeners, to check in with that, sign their petition to zero-rate cannabis in line with all other prescription medications in Canada. Because as it stands, right now about 60% of medical cannabis patients are actually being forced to underdose because they can't afford the amount that they've been prescribed.
So, Callan, just so that I can get this clear, so by the current law as it states right now in Canada, you're saying that a senior citizen or a person in need of care that could use something like medical marijuana for their whatever their ailment is more than likely be able to afford a bottle of, say, like Vicodin or Percocets, which are zero rated. I'm presuming, right, under the law.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than getting something like medical marijuana, which is all natural and doesn't have the addiction rate that has with opioids or anything like that. So that's what it really is.
This is what it is.
Precisely, and we're actually seeing here in Canada, and I know that it's in the States as well, but we have a huge opioid crisis going on right now with the way that doctors overprescribe triplicate narcotic medication. And a lot of people would very much like to swap over to medical cannabis, but simply can't afford to do so because it's not zero rated, and right now it's not covered by healthcare or a lot of the insurance providers that we have in Canada as well.
See, that's
it sounds more like what's going on in Canada is, and I feel like it's what's going on here in the States too. It's because they're allowing it to be legalized. They're seeing how much money is being made, and they want to capitalize on all the years that they weren't able to get.
That's precisely how it's going. And right now we have individuals running these licensed producers, these companies, who have never smoked cannabis a day in their lives. There's one company, National Access Cannabis, where the president is actually the ex-head of the RCMP Vice Squad. And so that immediately sets my alarm bells off because I try not to buy weed from cops. So,
so now, Callan, with the with everything that you've been seeing as far as patient access and everything like that, obviously the pushback is coming from on the governmental side, being as far as I'm sure all the red tape you would have to cross this thing. So your immediate, you said now your immediate thing that you're trying to accomplish is access to better quality medicine, correct?
Most certainly. What we're seeing with a lot of the legal stuff is that, with the type of packaging that it's in and stuff like that, that it's losing potency. With the high demand for product right now, I don't know if you folks know, but Canada actually has right now a nationwide pot shortage because they didn't expect the demand for it that there was going to be.
That's crazy.
People got weed and went
a lot
crazy.
of the stuff, like it's harvested early, or you get really small nugs, and then they have to be sterilized for the legal market as well. So a lot of these licensed producers use a gamma irradiation process, which can significantly damage the terpenoid content of the cannabis that they're selling. I personally have found now I'm not going to say all the legal cannabis or the legal recreational cannabis, but a fair portion of it is not cured properly. It's harsh on the throat. It produces nasty black ash. And because they're growing it in these giant monocultures, these huge crops, it makes it more susceptible, of course, to things like bugs and mold, just like you would see with any monocultured crop like corn or soy. So the issue with that is they're having to spray it. They have to do this gamma irradiation sterilization on it, where if they were producing it in small batches by craft growers, who have the time and knowledge put into the industry to begin with, we wouldn't have these issues that we would have to rectify, after the harvesting process is done. And we would get a lot better cannabis out of it.
Now, in Alberta right now, as it stands, so in that province there that you reside in, how is the law stated there? Because you says it varies from province to province. Now, out of all the provinces in Canada, how are yours in Alberta laid out?
Well, it's kind of a funny system because Canada itself has laid out the Cannabis Act. So that's the federal law saying, yes, cannabis is legal. After that, the individual provinces got to put their own regulations in place as far as, things like where you can smoke, what the age is that you can smoke, stuff like that. So as it stands in Alberta, our legal age for cannabis consumption is 18. A lot of other provinces, it's 19, and I think there's one province where it might be 21. In addition to that, here in Alberta, the general climate is that you can't smoke within, I believe it's 10 meters of the entryway of like a business or something like that.
That's roughly 30 feet
in parks, and you are unable to kind of smoke anywhere where children would play, like near elementary schools, anything like that. And then they do allow for businesses as well, like for, I should say for municipalities to then make their own laws. So the laws here where I live in Medicine Hat might be different than the laws in Calgary versus the laws in Edmonton. So even just city to city, there's vast differences in what you can and can't do. And then there's also the issue of, like landlords and condo owners saying, well, you can't smoke in your rental property, or you can't grow cannabis in your rental property, which is creating a lot of confusion in conflict with our medical system. Because if you're, say, like a medical cannabis patient and you have your grow license, that would, under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, because you can't limit someone's access to their medication, a medical patient's right to grow would override the Landlord-Tenant Act, but a recreational cannabis user's wouldn't. So there's quite a bit of confusion right now as far as who gets what, who gets what rights and licenses and stuff like that. But for the most part, each province's cannabis laws are pretty much in line with the pre-existing liquor laws for each province.
So do you just think that they're just making you guys go in a motherfucking merry-go-round of like madness? Like, in all honesty, like, I can't believe this. Like, I like left and right.
I
It's
think
just a
if
slap to the
anything
face.
else, prohibition was basically like the prohibition of cannabis has always been used to fill police quotas. It's a lot easier to bust some poor kid on the corner for smoking a joint than it is to actively go out and take down, a criminal enterprise, because one arrest is one arrest on the books. Doesn't matter who it is, kind of thing. So I think that rather than, like, I've always been a legalization advocate because the legalization of cannabis is supposed to take tax dollars that were previously being used, being caught up in the legal system, processing cannabis offenses, housing cannabis prisoners in jails and stuff like that, and then dealing with the social ramifications of all of these people whose lives have been ruined over a stupid plant. It's supposed to free up those tax dollars and those law enforcement resources to deal with more serious issues that we're having. But all we're seeing is it being used kind of as an excuse to put more police out there to enforce even more arbitrary legislation. And, so we're allowed, as recreational users, we're allowed 4 plants per household. And
is there any limits?
There are a few provinces where those plants actually have a height restriction, like you can't grow it taller than 100 centimeters.
Okay.
And
right.
One of the things that I think what's kind of happening with the legislation is they're putting all of these stupid, arbitrary pieces of legislation in place so that cops can still meet their quotas with easy busts and stuff like that. And I highly doubt, that they're going to be going into houses and measuring plants in, nice white neighborhoods. I hate to say it, but I really feel like this is going to be used to even further marginalize poor communities and communities that are primarily people of color, just so that cops can keep those arrest quotas up and have a reason to, stop somebody who's maybe an indigenous person for absolutely no reason, but they're going to be like, hey, man, can we weigh your bag to make sure there's only 30 grams in it? And then, go from there kind of thing.
Now, Callan, are you saying that there's a conspiracy within the police, within the Mountain Dew?
Pardon?
No, he's now Elo's saying, which actually brings up a good point. Now that you bring this particular point up, as far as the laws now regarding cannabis offenses and everything like that, with it being legalized now, is there anything sort of as far as retroactively taking offenses off the books or anything like that?
That would be great if they did that.
That would be fantastic. I know that there are politicians who have put forth bills asking for amnesty for prior cannabis convictions. I don't know how far any of those have gotten as of yet. It doesn't, currently, as it stands, cannabis convictions are still on the books. And in addition to that, anybody who has a prior record for cannabis production or cannabis trafficking is excluded from being able to work in the legal industry, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because in my opinion, I think you should be able to walk in with your criminal record for cannabis, lay it on the counter, and say, "There's my resume."
Oh man! So now with the obviously it's the federal government, so there's always just going to be hoops and hurdles that you have to jump through and over to get to get to the end goal. Now, that being said, as far as with the fight for better access of better quality medicine, you said that you mentioned earlier that you guys were in the middle of Supreme Court cases and such.
Definitely. Just recently there was, let's see. Oh, goodness. A little while ago there was R.V. Smith, which made cannabis edibles and extracts available to licensed medical patients. But unfortunately, as it stands currently, not yet available to recreational users. There's one that I've been following it relatively closely, but I haven't heard anything in the recent months of Jerry Martin has taken it all the way up to the Supreme Court of Canada, that the current medical system as it stands is unconstitutional because it for medical patients you have to order it. You have to order your cannabis online through one of the licensed producers to get the medical user price rather than the recreational user price. But it's still incredibly high. You're looking at least usually, even if you're low income and you send in your tax forms and they say yes, you're low income, when you get a thing called compassionate pricing, and that's I think the lowest I've found so far is $6 a gram. Even in that spectrum, if somebody is like a homeless cancer patient or something like that, they're still unable to access their medication. There's a minimum order quantity on all of these websites of at least 5 grams. Sometimes it's 10 grams. And then, if they're without stable housing, where are they going to get it mailed to? A lot of senior citizens aren't comfortable entering their credit card numbers online. They just don't have the tech literacy, and they can't necessarily be bothered to develop the tech literacy that they would need to feel comfortable doing that. So there's a vast array of kind of Supreme Court battles going on right now. Our impaired driving laws, unfortunately, have been amended to include cannabis. But because of the lack of reliable testing technology, we're going to be seeing a lot of Supreme Court action from those impaired driving laws. Because as it stands, if you get caught, even if they kind of have the initial suspicion that you've been using cannabis before operating your vehicle can be impounded, and then they have to send you for testing. And then those, like I said, the testing technology simply isn't there, because if they test your urine, it can show up to a month after you've smoked a joint, kind of thing. They can do a saliva swab that they say is accurate to within 3 hours, but we've been seeing that you can get a false positive up to 2 weeks after using cannabis. And the folks down in California and Colorado have actually come to our government and said, do not put these laws into place. Don't use these types of testing technologies, because they're not even guaranteed to work in the cold weather that we have in Canada. Under a certain, I think it's under 10 degrees, they stop working. So realistically, they've put this law in place before they've even had, the technology to make sure that they can enforce the law fairly and properly.
I mean, it just sounds like that. I guess they took the first step, but there's still several more steps that need to be taken for this to really be placed, for it to work. But before we close out, what do you feel is the future for cannabis in Canada? Like, do you feel like maybe the next couple of years things will change, or it's just going to be a long drawn process?
I think that we're definitely going to be seeing a lot of changes in the next few years. Like I said earlier, it's kind of a matter of baby steps. Everybody's really happy right now that at least we've gotten our government to admit that prohibition doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense. And they're just putting people in jail for, like a victimless crime. So I think over time we'll see the deregulation of legal cannabis, I hope. And that really all depends on people's willingness to take their charges to the Supreme Court of Canada. That's the one thing that I hope, if I can really stress to any listeners who might be traveling to Canada or might be listening from Canada, if you are charged with a cannabis offense, please take the time to fight it, because we're going to be seeing a lot of changes in the near future, but we have to have people who are willing to expend the energy to actually take those issues to the Supreme Court before we can see those changes.
All right. Well, you heard it here first from Colin, 420 Cannaisseur.
Is there anything that you want to promote?
Yeah. Any dispensaries that you know of, or anything you want to promote?
Do it now, man.
Yeah, definitely. I have my Twitter, my Instagram, and my Facebook, all at 420 Cannaisseur. I'm actually doing a 1,000 follower giveaway on my Facebook page right now. So if you want to come on over to facebook.com/420 Cannaisseur, and then if you're a Canadian resident and over 19, you can enter to win some new glass and some gummy candies. And as well, I just wanted to give a big shout out to my friends at Project Rainbow Medicine Hat. One of the things that I do within the cannabis community is campaign for intersectional inclusion of all the many facets of our cannabis community, and they are helping me right now put together a pamphlet for dispensaries on how to be more inclusive of our LGBT community in cannabis. So I want to give a big shout out to those folks.
All right, man. All right. Yeah, give it up to Project Rainbow, man. Medicine Hat.
That's a cool name.
We definitely got just off the name alone. I want to go check out. I want to check out that place. Medicine Hat.
I hear it and it reminds me of some like Neon Genesis.
Neon Genesis.
I don't know, something like that. Project Alpha.
Yeah.
But Callum, we thank you so much for coming on the show and gracing us with your knowledge of weed in Canada.
Yeah,
and,
man, keep going strong.
A lot of things we learned. I did not know.
Thanks very much.
So yeah, man, be sure to check out Callan.
Yes, definitely check
420
out
Cannaisseur. That's CANNAISSEUR. So yeah, connoisseur, but Cannaisseur. Yep. So check them out on all social media there, man. And yeah, man, check out that.
Show the love.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go ahead and check out. I'm gonna try to win that glass, man. You know what I'm saying? So.
But Callan,
thanks,
thank
guys.
you so
thanks
much
for having me.
For sure, man. Thanks a lot, brother. Peace.
Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Callan, a.k.a. the 420 Cannaisseur, all the way from Alberta, man. Canada, man. That's crazy.
That was just pumping knowledge. I love that shit. And also, people, he's definitely right. If you're going out there, please be careful, apparently.
It's just so...
it's crazy.
So hearing that is the United States, even though it's not legalized everywhere, where it is legalized, it sounds like it's still better.
Almost. I mean, he's saying that
California were probably, just the fact that you can smoke, but you can't smoke everywhere.
Yeah,
if you're going to a plaza, you can't smoke in there.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you can't smoke in a restaurant. You can literally just smoke at home, and then might not even be able to do that. Like how we said, there's
considering the housing authority. The housing authority and everything like that.
Shit. So it's like you got to go to a fucking river out in Alberta,
and it's the same. And it's the same thing that's happening here in the United States.
Is it?
In the sense of, so for us, our situation is different because at least they have the advantage, like he said, is that the federal government has acknowledged that marijuana can be used for medical purposes. Yeah, so they've allowed the access to it. So they've opened the floor to marijuana. Now, here's the thing. They're going to open up the floor, but that doesn't necessarily mean you get to see everything that's in the building.
Right.
They want to hold off some shit to themselves.
I'm trying to think because I seen plenty of people on Twitch, when they're doing the IRLs, and they're in California or Colorado just walking in the streets and no one stops them. So I'm guessing it's different. Like we can at least there's no limitation on a store or anything. It's just
No, it's it's the same process.
I think we still have the same thing with kids. You can't be near an elementary school.
You can't be near
probably
schools,
near a federal
in front of
building.
federal building in front of a business. like directly in front of a business. Like he said 10 meters, so that's about 30 feet.
It's crazy. That's
you know what I'm saying? Or plants that are 100 centimeters.
That's definitely the sidewalk. That's way past the sidewalk. 30 feet.
Well, no, 30 feet from
Way
the
past
business.
it.
Meaning, so like if the door is like, say this is the strip, right? This is the sidewalk here, and if the store is here, you have to be just 30 feet from the store.
Okay, I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? But the thing is that provided where you are, you might end up having to go all the way at the end of the fucking block because it's all storefronts there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
like,
that's fucking.
You get caught up in that little fucking dance. You know,
so it just sounds like Canada's like, all right, we're gonna give you this law, but it's gonna have some strings attached
Yeah, like I said, man, they definitely got them like spinning in circles.
Canada's definitely trying to cash out all those
Definitely.
fucking taxes and shit.
Definitely.
He said,
So-
what did he say? $6 a gram.
$6 a gram.
Lowest.
That's the lowest. Meanwhile, in Colorado and in California, I think the lowest a gram. I think it's the average price for a gram is like $1.50, $1.80.
Yeah, that's
Something
like
crazy like
$6
that.
a gram. And you have to get he said the minimum. You had to get a minimum of sometimes 10.
Yeah, 10 grams.
So right there, you're already spending
$60.
You're already knee deep in, man.
You're getting 6 grams.
No, 10 grams. At 10 grams, at $6 a gram.
10. Oh, right.
So $60.
$60.
So you're getting a little bit over a quarter for what do you call it?
So they're trying to figure out
A little over a quarter for $60.
Quarter here you can get about
That's what I pay now.
45.
That's what I pay now
50.
illegally.
Yeah, legally I can get a quarter for like 50.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
get
50, $60. That's what I pay now on
No,
average.
60 is too much for a quarter.
No,
Here where we are, at least in Florida, no, 60. You can get it for 50. You can get it for as low as 45. You got the right weed, man.
Yeah.
Got the right weed, man. You can get it for 45.
So 100 centimeters is 39.37 inches. So break that down to so 39 divided by 12 inches.
You know what I
that's
wanted?
3 feet. It can't be no higher than 3 feet.
I wanted to ask him about
little
those
over 3
warning
feet.
labels, like because he read one of them and that was so stupid.
Yeah.
So it says you're what did it say? Likely to be addicted to it.
No.
1 out of
you
3
can
people?
be. You can be. 1 out of 2 can
1 out of
become,
2.
which is 51%.
What do they mean by addictive?
It can become addictive.
Oh my god!
When-
I've yet to see a person
Like he
get,
says, tests have shown that there's a 6 to 11% addiction rate.
Don't we have like some like studies that show that weed is not an addictive drug? Haven't we? I'm pretty sure we've had some type of results.
Oh yeah,
because I've never heard that stigma of it's a gateway drug that once you do marijuana, the next thing is cocaine.
Oh, that shit went with the fucking birds, bro. Because now the DARE program. Remember the DARE program?
Yeah.
Okay, I was the spokesperson for the DARE program.
So was I
in my school.
I was.
Yeah. I was the spokesperson. Okay.
Well, I was for my class because. Listen, none of us wanted to do it. They made us fucking get like straws out of a jar, and I fucking got the one with the red on them. I was like, "Fuck!" You didn't do anything. I just stood there with all the other kids from class, who were representatives of their class for DARE, and you just stand there while some DARE representative is on stage at your class auditorium, talking about not doing weed, and you're just standing there with a DARE T-shirt.
Like no, well the point that I was trying to make is that they've now taken out that whole thing about marijuana being a gateway drug. Like they no longer say that marijuana is a gateway drug.
So what is
anymore.
DARE for then? Now, if it's just
still
cocaine,
it's still about drug abuse, and they still talk about but now they treat marijuana the same way they treat alcohol and cigarettes, as well as other drugs that you can become addicted to.
I hate when people put alcohol and marijuana in the same.
Well, no, it is the same thing. It
But
does fall
marijuana
on that
can't
same
kill you.
scale.
It can't kill you. Marijuana.
No, it can't.
You
it
can't
kill
overdose
you.
on marijuana. I can drink enough and die.
No, yes, you can, but it takes years for you to do that.
No, I can. If I wanted to, right now, I can drink.
Oh yeah, you can
5
have fruit,
cases of fucking.
Yeah. You can have liquor poisoning.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying? I can't do that. I can smoke the entire ganja in Jamaica, and I probably would still be fine.
I don't know about fine.
I mean, I'd be higher than a fucking kite. I'd be with Jesus.
No, you wouldn't. Be
I'd probably
with
never
Jesus.
come back. How high I get, but I'm not gonna die.
Jesus
At the end of the day,
like he just gets so high, like he's so heavy, but he's so high that he just floats. He just hovers.
I'm just a satellite.
He just hovers. He's literally like a hoverboard. He doesn't get further than like 3 inches off the ground.
Damn, I was thinking I'm at least a satellite. But,
you know what I mean?
For him, I'm a hoverboard.
He's just catching radio signals. But that was awesome, man. Shout out to Callan at 420 Cannaisseur. Check him out, man.
Yeah, I was actually just looking, and I didn't know he's a what's it called? He's transsexual, and he's also well, it says Callan. Well, from his info, Callan is a queer trans YouTuber, writer, and activist dedicated to informing and educating the public about the many uses of the cannabis plant via their channel, the Cannaisseur. Learn more about Callan, obviously, at his channel by clicking on the link. So that's on his WordPress, guys. If you want to.
Yeah, man, and that's awesome. And it seems like I mean, I don't want to draw too much from it, but like he was talking about how with this dispensary Project Rainbow Medicine Hat, where he's from in Alberta, I guess there's some sort of an issue with LGBT people being hired.
I feel like that's just the norm everywhere.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
you know what I'm saying.
Some people just can't let other people be happy, I guess.
Yeah, it's.
I was actually funny thing. I was watching the Daily Show the other day, and they had one of their like reporters go to a rally, and it was a conservative right wing. What is it? Alt right wing, right?
Alt right.
So it was one of those guys, and they were having a rally against the LGBTQ community. What is it? LGBTQ community, in fucking Alabama, like, because they can do that.
I'm sorry, it's LGBTQA.
QA, that's what I was missing. Yes,
thank you. I forgot the A.
So it was in Alabama, and he was asking them. So he was like, "So what's the problem with gays?" That's what he was saying, and he's like, "Well, the problem is they want to get married, and that is unconstitutional." And he's like, okay, so are you basing that off the Bible? And he's like, right. I'm like, but we have in our government, but that the religion is not going to dictate what's going on.
There's separation of church and state.
He's like, well, that may be, but that's not what they wanted when they was telling us. That's literally that's not what they wanted when they was telling us. And he's like, so you're saying that they put that there, but that's not what they meant. I
swear to God, like these fucking these.
It's like talking to a wall, man.
These ignorant people, and it's not just the Midwest, okay? It's not just no. It's not just the South. Okay, your Texas, your Mississippi.
There's more of a population there.
Yes, there's a
but you'll find them everywhere.
But what I'm saying,
you'll find them everywhere.
The point that I'm trying to make is yes, there
you'll find
is that
everywhere.
they are also on the fucking coast.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Oh well, now we know his laundry's done.
Yep,
ladies and gentlemen.
I'm gonna have some clean clothes, baby. I'm gonna look fly.
He's finally gonna stop doing 2-a-days on his underwear.
Isn't it funny? This is like the third week in a row that my laundry's gone off. It's like every time we're doing a cast, laundry's being done.
He does it, but he doesn't flip.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't flip on the 2-a-days. Just keeps it on the humble.
I wish I knew about that about him before, because I would love to have asked him, what's the what goes on over there, because I have friends who are gay, and I've been with them at times, and I've seen some crazy shit. You've never seen shit like that go down?
What do you mean?
Like just people just getting harassed?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
totally.
I have a buddy who he
in Ecuador all the time.
Well, I mean in South America that's a whole other thing. In Peru, I've definitely seen that. But
here's the funniest part. So here's the funniest fucking part. So there was a period for like, I'd say a solid. Man, it felt like forever. I was a fucking jit, so I'm probably not getting the time. It's probably like 6, maybe like a month.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'd probably say it actually. It felt like fucking 6 months though. But they were planning my cousin's quinceañera.
Okay.
All right. Now my aunt at the time, her and my uncle, they were doing very well, and and they always like to show out and stuff like that. They're always good for that shit. They, you know what I'm saying? They were always clean. That's what I always loved about them.
Fly.
You know what I'm saying? That was always cool and
Fresh
fly.
to death.
You know what I'm saying? But so they wanted to show out. So they're like, we want to have it in Ecuador. They lived back here in the States. We were living in Ecuador at the time, and they're like, we want to have it over.
They wanted to do his quinceañera.
Her quinceañera
all the way in Ecuador.
Over in Ecuador, because the better part of the family was over there. I don't. Yes, she had been there prior. She had been there prior. My cousins. But
What the fuck?
I don't know who that was.
¿Tú no sabes quién vos?
Tú no quién vos. ¿Qué vos sos, menso?
Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Narcos.
Dude, I saw someone who looked like
mames,
Pablo
wey.
today
No
when I was working.
mames.
I've been hearing caballero so much, I've been wanting to use that shit.
Oye, caballero.
Oye, caballeros.
Caballeros. Gentlemen.
Yes.
Please. Por
El
favor.
caballeros de Cali.
Caballeros. Por favor.
I have to, not to get off topic, but I have to say, Narcos season 3 is the best parts were Pablo. Hands down. That Cali cartel season it was alright. But that Pablo shit.
Which one were the Pablo episodes?
Season 1 and 2.
1 and
Season 1 and 2 were Pablo. Season 1 was basically his rise. And I think season 1 cut off when he built his jail, which was fucking absurd. And then season 2 was basically the downfall. And it ends with him being killed. And season 3 picks up right after that, but it picks up with the Cali cartel. And how their whole thing of they wanted to end the organization in 6 months. Because they had like a deal with the Colombian government that they would surrender, but they'd keep all their money. They wouldn't go to jail. They would just be like,
stop.
Get out of jail. Yeah, we just stop, but we're good. You're not going to arrest us. You can't do nothing to take any of our money.
Listen. I'll stop. But I'm leaving.
Now they're doing Mexico, which I was watching, and it was cool because they actually
El Chapo, right?
No. This is the beginning of the Mexican cartel in the 80s.
Oh.
And they actually showed Pablo, like the guy who played him. They had so what happened was when they were starting, because remember how they started out was marijuana. They started with marijuana. They didn't start with cocaine.
I gotta go take a piss. So just keep
All right.
talking.
He's got a small bladder.
Yeah, he's so tiny.
He's tiny.
Look at him go.
But they started with he's got to shake out the cobwebs. They had to. They wanted to start the cocaine business, so they were gonna. What happened was I think they were gonna start with negotiating with the Cali cartel. So what happened was he gets to Colombia, and Pablo's people just kidnap him right there from the airport. As soon as they hopped off the airplane, just put him in a car, and they took him all the way to Pablo. And Pablo was like, "I know who you are. We know about the Mexican cartel and them moving marijuana. So what are you doing in Colombia all of a sudden? It's long ways from Mexico. Hijo de puta."
Oye, caballero.
Oye, caballero. So then he tells him, he's like, I have a meeting with the Cali cartel with Gilberto Rodriguez. And he's like, all right. So you're gonna make a deal with them? He's like, yes, I'm gonna make a deal with them, and because they have basically they're the distribution. They can move anything. So he tells him, you're going to make a deal with them, but you're also going to make a deal with us for the same amount. And if anything ever goes missing, más te vale que es ellos. Which means make sure it's theirs, not ours. And it was dope. I didn't think I was going to see Pablo in that Narcos.
Well, he dabbled everywhere, bro.
Yeah. Well, I liked it because it kept it authentic, because it's like they're going back from the beginning, but now showing Mexico instead of Colombia.
Perspective change.
So you'll see, obviously, in that time frame, yeah, Pablo was alive. Yeah, Pablo was killing.
Who knows? This might be like a chain of things of like just showing like the drug side of like the dark drug side of the world.
I want them to do about the what is that the famous. She was the woman who was a drug cartel.
The one who created the bike drive-bys.
Was it her? Blanco, yeah. I wonder if they're gonna do her. Where's she from?
Blanco.
Oh, she's also Colombian. When was her time? What was her? When was her time?
Don't worry, we got the old and wise.
Yeah, he was there during those times. He actually was.
Look at that long wizard beard.
You were how old are you? 32? 31.
31. Practically, I'm 32. I turned 32 in January.
So
Shut up, you're like a wizard. You're like 500 years old.
I'm 32 in your Earth
El
years.
wizard, sir.
I'm 32 of your Earth years.
So what year were you born?
87.
All right, so you were, not at the height.
I'm a 90s baby. I came
not
in,
at the height of Pablo.
I came in the middle of the crack era.
You came right after Pablo was going down.
No,
Pablo's height was 85.
He was at the height, yeah, but like this is when 87 he was on the radar.
When did he commit the bombing? The plane bomb.
Wasn't that 80, like late 80s, like 89?
Was that 89
or something like that? I really don't know. To be honest with you,
plane bombing.
I'm really speaking.
And then he did the bombing nearest to the presidential building with President Gaviria, whatever his name is. Gaviria.
Griselda Blanco, she came into prominence back in the 80s here in Miami.
So she was just strictly here in Miami.
This is where she got her start at.
I wonder if she ever had any ties.
If you look up in the Cocaine Cowboy, she's part 2 of that.
Yeah, I know. That's why I have
wondering. Both of those DVDs.
I wonder if she did anything with Pablo, or if they ever like.
She fell under the umbrella of Pablo's
the Medellin cartel
of Pablo's syndicate. Yeah.
Okay. She was a part of the Medellin.
Technically, yeah, but she was like further down in the pyramid. You know what I'm saying? She was one of the major distributors. Down over internationally, over here in the States.
It's funny, they never showed her in any of the Narcos.
Probably because she really didn't. That's what I'm saying. She didn't deal with him. That's like saying, Well, they
did show a lot of Miami.
That's like saying the store manager of an Apple store dealing with Steve Jobs directly.
Well, they said the number one in the show. They said the number one person that was doing in Miami was Leon, which was originally Pablo's first supplier, the distributor. He would go from Colombia to Miami like 5 trips a day, but he would have like pouches of cocaine in his jacket. He started then getting like airplane the pilots to go in with that shit and
right.
But that's what they were saying. By the end of it, they're saying Leon was.
Well, they did change the story out around a lot in that show. A lot of the stuff, actually, to the point that Pablo's son took out a. You could actually look it up.
I heard about it. No,
Pablo Escobar's son. Well, actually, I want to look it up because I want to see exactly what it is that he said that got corrected. But he made a post correcting everything that the show either got incorrectly or they changed around for the sake of the story. A lot of the shit that they did in that show was a bit fictionalized for the sake of the story. It was Hollywoodized. You know what I mean? I heard it was a fantastic show. I just couldn't watch it on principle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so they have 28 things that were factually wrong with Narcos according to Pablo Escobar's actual son. Mm-hmm. So one of them is Carlos Hernano. Escobar's brother-in-law was not a drug dealer like he's shown on the show. Okay. That makes sense. Small but important point. Sebastian says Pablo Escobar was not a fan of Atlético Nacional, but Deportivo. Okay. La Quinca was in prison in New York at the time.
That's fucked up too, bro. To get that wrong for a Colombian dude, you gave him the wrong. He liked the other sports team. Fuckface. You know what I mean? That's like being a Yankees fan. He'd be like, he loved the Sox. What? We should call Carlos and be like, yo, which one's your team? Atletico or what was the other one? He said Atletico, or what was the one that he said it was?
So one of the big ones, which was a big thing in the second season, was his escape from La Catedral, which was the prison he made, right?
La Catedral.
Catedral, yeah.
That's the cathedral.
Right.
People.
So they said that there was no huge confrontation. Now, in the fucking show, there was a fucking humongous confrontation, dude. They had the vice president of Colombia, or not the vice ministro or whatever the fuck it's called. Had him come into the fucking jail and talk with Pablo. It was a whole big thing. They almost kidnapped him and shit, and they had to like shoot a bunch of people to get out. They're saying one guard died. One. No confrontation, just one guy. One guard got shot.
Yeah, but they gotta make ratings.
Oh, okay. So Limon, who is Escobar's driver, who came really late into season 2, says that he's not even his driver. He was Escobar's older brother's driver for 20 years. Oh, so the CIA did not propose the creation of Los Pepes to the Castellano brothers, according to Sebastian, which is his son. It was Fidel Castro who decided to create them with the support of the Cali cartel plus local and foreign authorities. Okay, so that's a big thing because in the show they make it seem like the CIA and the DEA are the ones that created Los Pepes to quote unquote kill Escobar's entire network.
Fuck those niggas.
They changed a lot of shit, bro. That's why I'm saying, like, on top of the fact that they were just making a show about the man, I'm like, they're not even going to do it. They're not even going to fucking make it truthful. They're going to fucking make this dude look like some sort of anti-hero or broken man or some shit. I'm like, you don't humanize this motherfucker. This dude was a fucking monster. Like, straight up. You know what I mean? Like,
what are you gonna do though? That's all
like I don't know where I heard it, and I don't know if it's you know how I remembered it's correct, but you know they were saying like you can attribute 2 million deaths to Pablo Escobar just off the war from it and everything. I think that's not counting like overdoses and shit like that.
So in the show, the District Attorney of Colombia is seen helping Pablo a lot in the show, and here it says that he never once helped him. Never once did they talk.
See what I mean? Like, so now, okay, so now, and then you said season 3 is of the Cali cartel, right? Right.
Right.
So. And now season 4 is what?
Season 4 it's Mexico.
I saw they had Diego Luna in there. It's fucking awesome. In that cast.
It is a really good cast though.
Yeah.
I can't complain anything about that cast. I've seen a couple good episodes from it, but at the end of the day, it's just like how this article is just disappointing that some things weren't on point.
Well, I mean, for me, it's you know, it's for me, it's a complete, it's an emotional thing. Like,
is it an emotional roller coaster?
Not so much that, but just that you know what I'm saying. They made, what do you call it? Like I said, they try to like Breaking Bad this dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, nah.
But like I said, again, they're just trying to make a story so they can get that, you know, that wowness out there of this story of this man that everyone wants to see now. For some reason, he became a lot bigger over the years. Not only because of the show, but a lot more talk on him, I guess. What do you think? Was I just seeing that shit? I'm not sure.
Okay. So this actually plays to what Serv was saying. So he says that Leon, his story as it's told in the series, inaccurately. He never lived in the U.S., which is how they have him. They have him living in Miami. And he says that he was loyal and valiant to Escobar, dying after being captured and tortured by the Castellanos. In the show, he gets captured by Cali, the Cali cartel, and he ends up betraying Escobar, and then becomes their plug into Miami. Basically, he showed them all the distribution, the money laundering people, everybody, and then they took that from him, and then they killed Leon in the show. They're saying he never did that. He actually, when they got him, they tried to torture him, and they ended up killing him. He died trying to protect Escobar.
Yeah.
But in the show, they have him
betraying him.
Yeah, and then getting killed.
Yeah, same.
Well,
yeah, there's 28 things, and it's like, you know, on the first like 5, it basically destroys the entire plot of the show. You know what I mean?
What are you gonna do, bro?
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, man.
So one of the big things is Escobar in the show kills Coronel Carrillo, who was one of Coronel Carrillo.
Who?
He's the colonel.
Who?
Carrillo. Coronel. How do you say colonel?
Coronel. Carrillo.
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 You
gotta roll that. You gotta roll that.
So in the show, he
in the show,
he was crazy.
In the show,
he was like
he was asshole tight. In that show.
Oh man! All right, I'm done.
In the show.
Let's just call it a day. Tired. So the Narcos is fake. All right, let's call it a day. We had a great interview with Callan. It was fantastic, guys.
Shout out
hope
to
you guys
Callan,
enjoyed
man. Check out 420 Cannaisseur, man. CANNAISSEUR.
We'll probably have him on again.
For sure, man. Talk about see what any improvements with the Canadian
definitely.
laws, because that's crazy, man.
Maybe in a couple months.
All the arbitrary rules and shit like that.
But if you have any questions for us about the interview, or you want to give us any suggestions on who we should speak to next, just
or any topics.
Yeah. Shoot us a comment.
Shoot us an email. Parental Advisory Cast.
Tweet at us.
Parental Advisory Podcast, actually, I think, at Gmail. If not, Parental Advisory Cast at Gmail. I forget right now. But if not, just Parental Advisory Cast on Facebook and Instagram. Parental Podcast on Twitter. Shout out to all the people on Twitter showing love, man.
Yeah, Twitter's great.
You know, Twitter's popping.
But you can find me at LSO463.
No one gives a damn.
Well, damn.
That's just fucking cold, man.
You can still find me at LSO463.
I will
find from my social media.
And
you can find me at LSOYT for my YouTube and LSO40 for my Twitch account. And take it away.
All right, me. All right, the brown guy. You guys can find me on Instagram, Snapchat, PSN if you want. Wilmo _ Chiquita.
And as always, you can find me at jserve954. JSERVE 954 on all social media. My new old album, Dope, is out on all major streaming platforms now. So shout out to everybody that has been streaming the tape. Thank you very, very much. Love seeing those numbers go up.
He's on a mission, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You know, I got some dope songs for y'all, some dope verses, some dope freestyle. So please check out the Dope tape. It's out everywhere that you could music and podcasts and everything are heard. Be sure to check us out on Podbean. We're on the Podbean app. It's free. Make sure to get yourself a free Podbean account. You can find us there daily. Subscribe to us, and every new episode that we put out, it'll instantly get beamed into your device. So so check us out there. Thank you very much for everybody that's been listening. We appreciate the love. We love you guys very much. And I think we are done. And we out this bitch, y'all.
Peace.
Peace and love. We're out. See, I did that. I just slowed it down. Like it was like the record. Like the record stopped.
You think?
Like okay. All right. We're leaving now. Okay, bye.